Hey, Josh, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, give us a little background on yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Josh Safford. I work for Smartsheet now. Been in software for almost 30 years. I started out as a programmer and taught myself everything so that I could kind of figure it out. When you're a nerd, you go to the Silicon Valley, just like a movie star goes to Hollywood, right? And so here I am. And I was a doc writer, and then I started teaching classes, and I taught a class one day to a sales engineering manager, and he said, "You'd be great in sales." And that was 23 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was a sales engineer, and then I wanted to be one of those salespeople. I'd sit in the meetings and think, "Wow, that guy's making all the money. He's not doing any of the work. I'm doing the demos. He's not doing any of the work. I want to be that." And so I became that 16 years ago. I started carrying a bag. And boy, that was some of the most difficult transitional years of my life. I figure after 16 years, I'm really starting to finally get it. You be the judge. That's how I ended up here. So,
Well, I have a almost identical background to that, so I can empathize with you. What was that first year like when you go from pre-sales person where you're valued, people respect you, you're not getting comped that well, to all of a sudden carrying a quota and no one values you unless you sell something?
it was miserable. It was the toughest year of my career. I,
Yeah.
I went into it just like a bull in a china shop. People throw playbooks at you and they tell you, everyone's telling you, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. You could have done this differently. And, I knew that it was going to take time to get to it, but just so many mistakes and public mistakes. You get that freezing feeling down your backbone. What did I just say? Oh my goodness. And just, you come out of that first year getting punched in the face so many times, you kind of develop calluses. And
Yeah.
that's really the key. It was just a very difficult callus building year.
And other than grinding, what worked for you to kind of learn how to sell? Because you were doing enterprise all along. Is that true?
I was doing big giant accounts as a sales consultant, but I took over an SMB territory.
Oh boy.
And yeah, and it was like, here's 350 accounts at Oracle selling CRM on demand, which is Oracle's competitor against Salesforce. This is in 2007. You can imagine what that was like. But I had the curiosity from the training we got as sales consultants. And Oracle, when they built us up, they were really careful to make us curious and also ask the question, so what? I'm not just showing features and functions. There's a business value behind it. So somewhere I still had that in me, and I would just kind of default to, what are we trying to solve here? I'm not going to show you product because I'm not a sales consultant anymore, but I still need to know, what's your issue? What really just conversational tone was what got me through those years. And I'm still friends with some people that I met in those early days.
Yeah. And when did you get your groove with sales?
Oh boy. I'd say I got my groove in sales about after 6 years.
Yeah.
After 6 years of carrying a bag. 6 years of carrying a bag. Uh, I I feel like it takes 2 years in a sales role to get to the point where you can just be fluid and feel it without having to stop and think, like learning a new language. I mean, you can't stop and think and translate from English into French. You got to just switch to French. That takes 2 years just for any new company. But for me, just to get to that point where it took 2 years, took me 6 years. It's a tough ride.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
It's not. And did you have a particular epiphany, or did somebody kind of take you under their wing, or was there a big deal that gave you the confidence?
There was a big deal that gave me the confidence. There was a point where I finally said, look, enough of your playbooks. Stop telling me what to do. Anyone who knows me out there, you describe me as quirky because I do it my way. And my way starts with getting to know you. No solution has ever been solved. No problem has ever been solved with a bunch of 30-minute meetings. It's not possible. And just being able to have me just leave me alone and let me do what I need to do. And having the freedom that I had in this one case allowed me to build the team that I needed and take the approach that I needed and back channel as I needed and break out of these norms that we've kind of been accustomed to, which was really mind-blowing for a lot of people. People low on the chain, why are you taking me so seriously? So because you're the ultimate stakeholder. How can I talk to the vice president if somebody under the vice president can't explain to that vice president why the VP would talk to me? And same thing to the VPs. It's like, as high as you are, I've had C-level executives say, I'm going to sign your deal, but I got to know, like, how does this work? How is this going to work? You actually want to see it? Yes, I want to see it. I'm a C-level executive at a technology company. Show me a screen. Show me anything that you can show me. And that breaks every rule in the book. But when an executive asks to see something, you show them what they need to see.
Yeah. So how would you characterize your process?
It's a foundational process. There's a lot of discovery and thinking going on when I take over a territory. I can't just show up and say, here's the plan. So I go in and I just listen and I ask a lot of questions. There's no meeting too long or boring or low level that I'm not going to take. I'm going to take every meeting and just try to fill up my head, develop a visual landscape of course, the people are what make all this work. Who are the people? And I look at all available information, both internally and externally, to try to understand without oversupposing what people's motivations are. And then, I'm still doing this. I'm in the 3rd month here at Smartsheet, and I don't have a comprehensive plan yet because I'm still assembling all of my materials, the mortar, the cinder block, the paint, everything. I'm still assembling it all. And then when I look at it, I can say, okay, this is the kind of house that I can build. And that's, for me, that's a 3-month process.
Yeah. But it's hard to find a company patient to wait 3 months for progress,
You got to
isn't
be
it?
true to yourself. Yeah, you have to. They hired me here to do this crazy job. I have 3 accounts, and they're already existing, and I'm supposed to grow these accounts. And you have to be crazy. You have to have a wild hair to do that. And so I have to go and ask for what I need, even if it's non-standard. And I have to make a business case for it. Just like my executives have to make a business case to get budget to buy what I'm selling. I have to make a business case and say, I'm going to do things differently, but here's why. And this is what you hired me to do. So it's not just go in, follow a playbook. This is the kind of thing that we all do. That works for a run rate business. But each one of my accounts it's like you, Brian, you're a different person. I'm not going to talk to you the same way I talk to my wife. I'm not going to talk to my kids the same way I talk to you. Individualism. That's the key, because people want authenticity and they want to know that you're thinking about them.
And what do you see wrong with sales today? Because sales kind of, certainly over the last 10 years and definitely over the last 5 years, I think it's just gone off the rails.
If I hear another thing about the perfect email subject, or I'm going to watch these guys on the internet, and here's an email, here's a giant email, and we'll put the camera on this guy, and in 30 seconds he'll redo it. Like, that's not, people are not opening. You know what I mean, right? Like, this stuff happens. So the idea that there's some magic formula out there, we're trying to make it formulaic. We're trying to take an art and turn it into a science. So, every Monday night at 7, I go out and take out the garbage. Okay, great. I know that it's easy, but when I'm camping, garbage is like another thing. I have to manage it and think about it. And I'm going to have to carry it on my back for 4 days because you got to pack out what you pack in. So I have to think a little bit differently about that situation out in the dusty, as we call it. I'm a big camper. And so you have to make it up as you go along. No, you have to understand the playbook and then close the playbook and learn how to fly the plane without having to flip to page. How do I put the landing gear down? Go to page 55. No, it's up here. Like,
well, I like the camping analogy is good because camping requires preparation. There's no stores out in the woods, right? There's no Amazon Prime in the woods.
No, thank God.
Yeah. So do you find a lot of analogies between camping and sales?
I'll tell you, the best analogy for that is I can make up an analogy that has to do with commercial aviation for anything.
Yeah.
Okay. We're all in this together. There's 2 people flying, one person flying the plane, but there's a co-pilot. There's people in the back. Okay. There's a team of people in the back. There's customers in the back. We're literally all in this together. Okay.
There's no choice.
The captain can get up and serve coffee, but then the people are going to look at each other and say, what kind of airline is this? Right. The flight attendant can save lives. You don't usually see them doing that. So the best analogy is, this is the kind of salesperson I want to be. I was on a flight once, back of the plane, back in the 80s, you can still smoke cigarettes in the back of a TWA 747. I'm talking with this random guy. We're just talking. And we hit turbulence. And we both got cups in our hands drinking. I was drinking a drink. He had a hot coffee.
Oh
And
boy.
while we were talking, the back of the plane went like this. And I watched the cup of coffee go up in the air and go right towards him. And I just went like that. And I caught it. And I looked at him and he looked at me, and we were connected now for the rest of that flight. Like otherwise I would have just been this guy. So I barely knew him, but my hand instinctively went out. He knew exactly who I was at that moment.
Now,
that's the kind of salesperson I want to be.
Which builds trust because you cared more about him.
And I didn't have to think about what's the right thing to do.
It was instinctive.
It was instinctive. People say to me, I'm going to have a conversation with this person. Oh, be careful. Be careful of what? Well, don't give them too much information. Don't be too transparent. You're sharing. I've had VPs say, oh, you're sharing a lot of these really secret details about, how we operate with the client. Like, they're moving in with us. We're getting married. They need to know what this is going to be like. Don't tell them this. Don't tell them that. They're telling me everything about their business so that I can help them. I'm supposed to clam up about mine.
Yeah.
So these are examples of how, yes, I've certainly been, you could say, a challenge to manage, and it's paid off.
And let's talk about that challenge to manage, because I've experienced that as well. And most great salespeople are, because the easy people to manage are the people who come in, do what they're told, and somehow sell something.
Yeah.
And I always found it's like, I don't know how they sell something when they spend their whole day doing what they're told.
Yeah. Yeah.
How have you managed up?
Well, like I said earlier, I manage up by always making sure that there's a justification behind it. So if I'm not going to follow your playbook exactly, or if I'm going to suggest an edit to the playbook, I'm not just going to stand up and say, you got to change this because I want you to. I have to make a case for it. And I've learned to ask, well, I've learned two things. I've learned to say in a way, I think I understand how you feel, not to be over assumptive, but I've been in this position before, manager, VP, and you might be thinking this, and I understand why you're thinking that. Let me assure you that there's a method to my madness, and here's a proposal how we should modify that. And I think that's justifiable. I don't think I should just go off and do what I need to do, and people look at me and they're like, what's he doing? Oh, trust me. Because management has to make sure that I am doing the right thing. And I'm not, I need to be managed. I have to have a person to discuss things with and try ideas out with before I go live and, like this. But at the same time, if you stifle my instincts and my creativity, then you've stifled me. You've made me inefficient. I can't do what I need to do. And I do battle against, how many of these internal calls do I have to join? Right? Your heart's in the right place. Yeah. A lot of those are good, but not all of them are necessary.
Yeah. Well, let's dig into the creativity, because I'm sensing that's your superpower.
That two superpowers, creativity, and I cannot lose. I cannot fail. And this job, every day I'll get a phone call and it'll be my prospect, my customer who's got a deal in the pipeline, and I immediately freeze when I look at my phone because it's going to be bad news. I mean, after all these years, I'm like horrified. And so everyone I work with, I said, when you call me during the deal signature time, tell me everything's cool. The first thing you have to say is everything's cool, because I just assume, bad news, right? So I absolutely get up every time. Like, how many deals have we had that were dead, and then you hit the defibrillator on the thing and it comes back, and again the next day, you just, if you say, okay, it's done, it's over, we're done, no deal would close. There's always blockers, and to get through those blockers, you have to be creative. There's nowhere to fix this. Camping, I'm out in the woods, or even on the airplane, I don't have anything to fix this. I have dental floss. Will that work? Dental floss, by the way, is magic when you're traveling. You can use it for a million different things. When you're in the air, you're camping, dental floss. I didn't think you could use it that way. I was just thinking, well, what do I have that's like string to tie that thing back up? Creativity.
Yeah. And what typically have you seen those blockers? Because I think a lot of people early in sales assume if the champion wants it, the company buys it.
People don't understand. It's, for me, getting a deal done is like the miracle of childbirth, or again, the miracle of commercial aviation. The fact that you can get 450 people in the air for 12 hours safely and feed them and they can watch movies. I mean, it's a miracle. It's truly a miracle. And there's millions of parts on a plane. Well, there's millions of parts in a sales cycle, and that champion wants it. But I bet you that that champion's never bought what I'm selling before, and they have no idea what they're getting into.
Despite what they tell you.
And I got to test them, and you have to test your champions. And have you done this before? Oh, I've done this before. Have you really done this before? Do you want to, let me review this contract with you before we send it to purchasing. Do you realize what you're actually going to be on the hook here? Oh, well, when I see it actually in the order form, it's just been talk up until now. And now this is real. There's a signature block on this thing. That's the kind of transparency you need. And that's the kind of creativity you need to have. Is I got to solve this problem, and I got to test my champion. I got to find a way to do it. You should never show the order form to somebody before you go. What? Who made up that rule?
And the hate losing part, where'd that come from?
I've invested so much of my time, but that's nothing, because all these people who support me, right? Like I ride on the shoulders of my team, right? My inside sales reps, my CSM, sales engineers, the people in finance, everybody, okay? They need this because they've spent their time on this. And I've had people look at me and say, we have to get this. Like you could see it in their eyes. Jobs are on the line. We need this multi-million-dollar deal so that we can keep this consulting team going. I mean, the amount of pressure, again, back to that, the captain on an airplane, can you imagine what she's feeling? Somewhere in her mind, she knows that she's got this thing and all the people and their families in the back. Imagine that responsibility.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to say that it's a life or death thing. It's just a job. It's just software. But you still, you owe it to the people who've invested.
Well, that's the first time somebody's really shared that perspective. Most people,
really?
most people, it's like, I hate to lose. For me, it was kind of what you started with. I put so much time and energy into it. I'm not going to lose.
Yeah.
Because of the lost investment of my own time. But the team behind you, sounds like you've managed people before.
I've never had a direct management job. I'm one of these folks who's kind of a dinosaur who made a decision a long time ago that I'm going to be an individual contributor. And I experimented with it. I didn't want it because as much as I love people, I can't spend my time with just a lot of these personnel issues. But I get the best of both worlds because I do have a matrix organization. I have dotted line to my team. So I lead my team, but I'm not an HR manager. So I kind of have the best of both worlds there. And believe me, there's a lot of psychology in it. There's interpersonal relationships that have to be managed, and nobody gets a holistic view. This is one thing I've learned is that every departmental manager, they know everybody on their team. Everybody on their team does the same thing. The sales engineers are on one team, consulting's on one team, salespeople are on one team, but I'm the only person who can look all across them and watch, how do the sales engineers hand off the projects to the consultants? How does finance work with services when there's an issue, with milestone billing on an SOW? I'm the only one who gets to watch these interdepartmental relationships. Who else can have a management authority and responsibility over cross-functional teams like that? I love that. I love it.
Without having the headaches of people looking for their review, arguing about holiday time off, and
yeah, exactly. It's truly the best of both worlds. It's benefiting from the power that you can get from when 1 + 1 = 3 with teams, until you get a team that's so big that you have a diminishing, marginal return. But being at the cross-functional, the cross-pollination is magical. I have a new a solution architect, we call them over here, solution engineer on our team. And she's been with the company for years as a consultant. And so she comes over with this consulting mindset. And I, I kind of did that when I got into sales engineering. And I warned her, you come over as a consultant, it's a different job. Sales engineering is different than consulting, right? Being an instructor like I was is different than selling. And so I was able to help her based on my personal experience. This is what I went through back in 2000. Don't fall into the trap that I did. And she teaches me about how to work with her and the services person that's coming in, because she used to be a services person. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just so eye-opening. Every day is so eye-opening. Every day is a new day in sales.
And what part of the sales process do you feel you're the best at?
Oh boy.
Some people are great at getting the meeting. Some people are great at the presentation. Others are, working the org. Some are working the financials, doing the business side of it. Some people I'm assuming maybe you still love the technology side of it.
Yeah, this is the first company I've worked at where everybody has to certify on the product. Even Mark Mader, our CEO, posted on the internal Slack channel that he certified himself the other day on the product. And I use it. I built a travel app to manage our European vacation in Smartsheet. So this is the first time in my career that I really believe in the product that I use. It actually is game changing, and I'm excited about it. I'm best at establishing the strategy. My number one job is to establish a strategy, not make it up. I have to work with everybody to come up with it. But if you ask me, what do I do besides being the ultimate facilitator? It's probably what I'm best at, is facilitating, is establishing a strategy by bringing in the input and then helping manage the team towards that strategy. The thing that I absolutely do, I think, better than maybe anyone else, I mean, your results may vary out there in the internet, but finding champions, motivating champions, gaining their trust, I can't do it. There's me and there's the champion, not me and the executive sponsor. Okay. Not me and the power users. There's me and there's the champion. And every deal I have done, I've had, it's cell phone conversations. It's 24/7. People call me while they're jogging, because that's when they talk, and I'm talking, and we're talking like you and I are talking right now. Like I would talk to you if we met on the airplane next to each other. I don't have a slide deck. Hello, what's your name? My name is Brian. Here, let's go to slide 2, Brian.
Let's go through. I was born.
There's the flight attendant coming by. What would you, if wants alcoholic drink, go to slide 4. That's not how conversations work.
Well, I mean, because today you don't see much strategy or process, or it's the company's process. It's discovery, call, presentation, demo, propose, negotiate, close. But that's not how anyone buys.
No. That's my selfish. That's a necessary thing. I need to have that on my side, because we have to be able to monitor our pipeline. I totally get it. Yeah. And also these directors that are multiple layers above me and vice presidents, they can't. I have to be seen as a science, not an art. So somewhere I have to rationalize myself into a scientific analysis. And so my job is to translate this art that you and I are having right now into actionable items. That's what this has to do up here, is map the very fluid, always changing, always evolving relationship map, and still be able to map it into my very rigid, forecasting, for example. And that's valid. I mean, that's my primary thing, right? That's what I have to do. So the trick is, how do you not let the infrastructure that you have to interlock with at your company, how do you divorce yourself from that when you're in front of the customer? You're going to have to go back and update your opportunity, and there's medic questions. Okay. But I'm not going to go like with my medic questions. I'm going to have my little list right here and be like, okay, tell me about
your decision-making process.
Yeah. Who is the decision maker?
Please stand up.
Please stand up. To have that conversation, and I do have to rationalize it back into the CRM system. So I say to anybody out there, if you want to be successful, understand you're going to log everything somewhere. That's how you know what you're doing right, and that's very valid. But do not let that inform your strategy in the field. Translate those things down into that system. Take all this enablement with another playbook. This playbook has 53 slides and 8-point font. Okay, that's not a playbook. That's like a play tome. That's like a play War and Peace. Okay, I need like a pamphlet that I can look at. So the other thing I say is take all the enablement that's given to you, all right, and then pick out the 5 pages that you need. Thanks, guys. The 1,000,000 pages. What a generous offer. I'll take these 5. Okay, that takes time and planning, and you don't necessarily know which 5 pages you're going to need. You might take these 5 and hand them back, and it's like playing poker. I'll put 3 down, pick up another couple. I like these cards better. I'm going to play these cards now. And you start learning, these are the cards that I like to play. I know what to do. I can make a straight flush out of this. I've done this before.
And when you're thinking about the strategy, do you visualize it, or do you have the airplane analogy of where it is, or can you see exactly how it'll play out?
Yeah, I'm visual. I'm very visual. I don't react to just words. And when there's words on a slide, I have to interrupt you and say, okay, here's how I see it. And I use my hands. Something's going from here to here. Like because words can be misinterpreted.
Sure, definitely.
What is the word pipeline? We just had an internal call, pipeline. Well, pipeline means different things to different people. Real estate industry pipeline is different from my enterprise sales pipeline. Different word, different meaning, same word. So, a picture you can't argue with. And I visualize the people and I visualize the problem. So, I mean, I actually visualize people copying and pasting stuff. We eliminate a lot of that. Not to go into Smartsheet, but we eliminate a lot of this manual processing. And I physically imagine somebody on a Friday can't pick up the kid, go to Little League practice because they're doing this brainless, like absolute soul killing work that should be automated so they can go do bigger things. I visualize that. And then when I actually meet that person, they know that at my heart, they can feel it because they know that I visualized it.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, Josh, really appreciate your time today. Where can people go to connect and follow you?
Hey, I'm on LinkedIn, Josh Safran, Saffren. Like to stay on LinkedIn, keep it there. I'm in a few other places, but I don't look at that stuff anymore.